Dianna Russini is joining us, and we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. I already talked Jets last hour, so I want to come from a different direction. So yesterday, I wasn't privy to it, but apparently, like NFL insiders were squabbling and bows and arrows yesterday on the Pete Carroll stuff. Now, my takeaway is, if players can play into their 40s, coaches can coach in their 70s. Pete Carroll, details, culture builder, relentless energy. I guess people on the internet were fighting over it. I buy it. I'm not saying best candidate. I think Vrabel's a stronger candidate probably. But the Pete thing doesn't feel like it's just made up out of thin air to me. What do you hear, Dianna?
Yeah, it's definitely not made up. Most of the insiders are aware that Pete Carroll has wanted to get back into the coaching game this entire time. This wasn't news. Specifically to the Chicago Bears, or at least being connected to that, makes a lot of sense, right? He's going to take an opportunity wherever he can get it. He's not just only looking at the Chicago Bears. He's going to be looking at every single opening, and we'll see if whether teams will take this seriously. You know, I know the internet, as you said, those internet clowns at times are all arguing, oh, Pete's too old. Pete can't do this. I look at it this way. If you're the New York Jets, for example, and you know that you got to clean up some things there, are you willing to take a risk on a first-year head coach who's never done it, who doesn't know the paths, who doesn't know the challenges, the adversities, the big media market, and just hope he can figure it out on the job? Or maybe you want to tap into a guy that's been there before, that's done it, that's been through some controversies over his life, and has also found ways to win, build up a franchise, and he's won at the highest level. So I don't think the Pete Carroll report right now is just to get some steam under him. I think it's a reality that Pete Carroll wants to be a head coach of an NFL team. We'll just see what team is going to be interested in Pete Carroll at this point.
So an hour ago, Dianna Russini, the Athletics senior insider, an hour ago, Greg Cosell, who breaks down film for us on Thursday, said the Cowboys are offensively really well coached. And Mike's got Cooper Rush playing at a DAC level. And we know they don't have much of a run game. We know they're rebuilding the O-line. I don't know, but Jerry's always been, for all this Maverick talk, he's always been a little more loyal to coaches than people give him credit for. My gut this morning is McCarthy is returning. I think he's a good coach. I don't like him as much as McVay. But what are you hearing?
Before you make a move at the head coaching position, you first take a look at who's available, right? So when you take a look around the league and you try to figure out who would Jerry Jones want to work with? Is there a coach out there that makes a lot of sense for the Dallas Cowboys? And then I think that's where you get your answer. So your gut is that he sticks with McCarthy. And I can tell you people in the Dallas building that work under Jerry Jones claim they have no idea what they want to do there. And I just saw Stephen Jones recently, and I asked him directly, what's the plan? And he said, we got to take a look at the entire body of work here. My response to that was, haven't you seen enough? But they really want to see how this thing finishes out. And every single week I hear more and more coming out of Jerry's mouth that tells you that he believes that Mike McCarthy can get this thing right. I can just tell you, though, what people around the league are saying. They think Mike McCarthy is going to be safe. We'll see what happens when this thing wraps up. But considering a month and a half ago I was on the show talking to you about this, I assumed that this would be it. I thought that this was it for Mike McCarthy. They weren't winning. They seemed lost. And now they're surging. And as Greg Cosell pointed out, their offense is clicking. So why are you going to move on to a guy who's won this many games for you? Perhaps maybe not in the big dance, but he's got all the right things. And I can tell you, if Mike McCarthy were to get dismissed, we'll call it, there will be teams interested in bringing Mike McCarthy in for an interview. I can tell you that. I've had some conversations with teams around the league.
A couple years ago, Aaron Rodgers got visited by Saleh and Woody Johnson. It was kumbaya in his beautiful Malibu place. Yet this week, Aaron says, I don't know if I'm coming back, ask Woody, which tells me it's a frostier relationship. I think Vrabel's the leading candidate in the room. I'd hire Thomas Dimitroff as GM. I would trade Garrett Wilson. I'd keep Aaron. I would. I think he's played great the last 8 weeks. I mean, I don't know where to start on this. First of all, gut feeling, a lot of bad stories on Woody and his kids. Is Aaron back next year? Let's start with that because the coaching thing we can talk about. But Aaron and Jets, I would bring him back. What say you?
Yeah, I think you're saying that just based on the last few weeks where you've seen him run the offense pretty well, but there are more problems behind the scenes than you realize for the offense in general. Every day there's a new door opening here in terms of what the next steps are going to be. 3 weeks ago, I talked to people who are close to Rodgers who said that, he probably wants this chapter of his time in New York to be over. There are others that say that Woody Johnson has been done with Aaron Rodgers for a while. And then we hear Rodgers say he wants to be with the Jets. And then the next day he says, maybe I'll be on the beach, right? It's almost as if there's a lot of different versions of this right now because nobody really knows what they want to do next. And the Jets really can't move forward with this until they get the GM and head coach in place and allow them to make the decision on what they want to do with Aaron Rodgers. At this point, I still don't think that this is going to be a marriage that sticks.
Yeah.
Just based on what I know on what's been going on behind the scenes over the last few months, you point to the fact that you've heard a lot of stories coming out about what's going on. They're not stories, it's reporting that we did about really what the dysfunction has been behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And Woody Johnson does have two sons, a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old who influenced their dad. And have made suggestions over the last season or so. And Woody listens. And Aaron Rodgers, when you hear him talk about some of the leaks, right, you hear him constantly complaining about it. And I think everyone listens to him and goes, you know what? He's right. Why are there so many leaks? Whereas I look at it as stop worrying about the leaks and worry about what that is that's coming out. Those problems that he's talking about, the problems that we're reporting on are things that have been hidden and that really need to get fixed, which is why I know you say, Dimitroff and Mike Vrabel are your top candidates. Why would those guys take this job? There's so much that has to get fixed. And if they really want a guy like Mike Vrabel, who's going to be the most sought after head coach right here in this free agent space, once he becomes available, why would you not just find a way to why wouldn't you just find out what Mike Vrabel wants at this point and go, who do you want your GM to be?
Yeah.
How do you want to run this?
Yeah.
Because the Jets need answers and he will probably be able to provide you some. I just don't know if they're going to make it to a point and get them to even interview him by the time this thing goes, because I know so many teams are trying to get interviews with Vrabel once they're allowed to legally.
All right, finally, I want to talk about the Gerard Mayo situation. So when they hired him, my take was, okay, it feels like it's too Belichickian. Break free from that stuff. Go offense. You're getting Drake May. I follow a lot of Patriot fans, and, you'd think this is the worst coach in the league. Then I watched them last week against Buffalo, and they go toe-to-toe with the Bills when they don't have close to the roster. So, listen, if they lose out, they're currently 3-12. It's ugly. But, listen, the last few years with Bill were ugly. They have another great draft pick. I think I'd bring him back. But again, the heart of Boston, they've been so spoiled by it. Everybody's got everything must go liquidation sale. What's the latest with the Crafts and Mayo?
I know. I wish some of those fans would live in Jacksonville for a year and see how they feel, right? They're so spoiled, but they hold their team accountable, which is why you have to love a fan base like this. They can never get enough. They forget so quickly. And you're right. When you've got the quarterback, because they've got the guy, that is what everyone has been saying around the league. Drake May is the future, right? They nailed that. And when you think about Robert Kraft and you think about how they are very comfortable with keeping things New England, they don't want to change things. They don't want to go in a different direction, because if you're them, why would you? It's worked in the past. The way they want to do it has worked, which is why the Gerard Mayo thing, based on his experience, you're taking a big gamble here, but it makes sense because he speaks their language. He is New England. And the thought process was that Bill Belichick would sort of bring him into it and teach him. And he got to watch how Belichick did it. And I don't necessarily think what we're seeing on the field is very Belichick-like. And I think that's the problem Boston fans have. It's great that he was a New England Patriot at one point, but they're not seeing those New England Patriot ways in some of the performance on the field, some of the things in the press conference. And I can tell you that the Kraft family, they were ready for the bumps and bruises here. They knew that a first-time head coach is going to go through it. They are learning on the job in a really tough market. But you have to wonder if this has been good enough. And I can tell you the tone in that building went from, we're going to probably be safe, whereas I can tell you people in that building do not feel that strongly about it. anymore. It's really, I believe, going to come down to the last games here with Kraft really making a decision. Do you pull the Band-Aid and just own it and say, you know what? We believed in him. We thought maybe he had the pieces of what a great coach would be, but it's not going to be able to work. We don't have the time. We don't have the patience for it. We don't want to waste the years of a great young quarterback and then find someone that can come in. Or do you say, all right, maybe we just give him one more year?
Yeah.
But as we know, Colin, how many times do we see owners do this? Usually, if you're playing with it, if you're toying with it, if you're thinking about it, you should make the move, because you always come back the next year and you'll end up firing the guy anyway. Yeah. So most of those owners that have those doubts, they usually come through. And if Robert Kraft is having doubts, then this could be another opening we see available.
Yeah, and it's usually about 7 new coaches a year. We're currently at 3, so I think in the next week to 2 weeks you're going to see moves. There's a couple of big candidates, and you and I both think the Pete Carroll thing feels like it's got a pulse. Dianna Russini, hope you and your great family had a wonderful time. It's great seeing you. You know, you're just crushing in your job. Your podcast with Chase Daniels is outstanding, and way to go. Congrats.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet. Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.